Connectors. So if we add a block, and we have a copy of the block, we add a connector between them. We'll position that to kind of be central-ish. Now that can freely move around there, but you can use a keyframe, and you can use springiness in here to kind of help keep it there, kind of. And then if you have lower springiness, it will kind of wobble around until it gets back to the original position. Or you can use a keyframe to record the position, and then it will stay at that position. We'll turn that on, play time, and we'll add springiness to that, like that. And this basically ignores physics. When something is keyframed, the position is keyframed, it doesn't actually use physics, it just uses like the motion of where it's meant to be and springs it to that position. Whereas this uses like the weight and the physics, which can make it behave differently to using a keyframe, I think. So if I record into this keyframe this position, then it uses hatch marks that are to the top right, and they're kind of yellowy. They have a yellow stripe in them. So now when I play, this keyframe is trying to get that thing to that position. So if I turn this off, I can move this around, and this is recording this position, and then this piece here is rotating so that that position can make sense as best as it can. And if we actually turn off the springiness, it will just lock to that position as best it can. And if it's further away, then it will try and reach towards it, kind of thing. So if you had warning, a really rubbishy looking spider on the way. So if you do something like use a keyframe to position that there, so it does everything it can to make that make sense. And then if you actually move this up, it will try and point down to it. So you can get really nice falling animations for like a spider or an insect, but just by keyframing that down, and then you just go woomph, and now it'll just sort itself out for you. So this is called inverse kinematics, and it rotates the other joints up to 3. So it will rotate this one to allow this one to be in position. So it works for up to 2 joints, or yeah. So through this joint, this one will rotate. Through that one, that joint, that one will rotate to allow this one to be in that position. However, there's another way of recording, and that is to record the rotation. So if we forget that and use L2 to record that rotation, then it's remembering that rotation, the rotation of the actual joint. So I'm using L2 to record this, and it's using hatch marks going to the top left into the top right, and it's got a greeny line going through it. So that's really good for the springiness that I talked about, because it just wants to keep it upright, and will follow, but still be constrained by the joint, and the joint will try to get it to the recorded position. Which is why the joint, if I forget that recording, I'll use so this one is using FK with the stripe going that way, and the joint isn't affected by that keyframe at all. But then if we use FK, probably said it wrong over there. If we use FK on this one, then you can see the joint has that recording as well, because it's actually the joint being affected. So this one cares about where it is, whereas this one doesn't. So if I delete that one, This one doesn't care where it is at all, even when running time. It just cares about the rotation of it and the rotation of the joint. Now you may notice that if you try and use R2 to record this, it actually still records a forward kinematics rotation of the joint. This is because it can't change, it hasn't got enough of a chain to be able to keep that in the position and rotate the previous ones. Because it's just a child element of a chain of one, you can't actually use the IK stuff to position it. You can only use the FK to rotate the joints and store that. But what you can do is use both in tandem. So if I have that position down there and I joint it up, so this is recording the position and trying to get to that position, but you can tell this one that you want it to always be kind of rotated forwards a bit like that. So now that's trying to get to the position. This one will rotate to allow it to get there, but it will also try to rotate forwards a bit. So if you still put it back, it will still pull back. So the positional IK keyframe will take precedence over a rotation keyframe. So this one isn't telling that one to be over here because it wants to rotate a certain way. This one is saying, I want to be in this position, so you sort yourself out and you can rotate a little bit if you need to. One thing to know about though is if you start by recording FK with the stripes going that way, so I'm recording the rotation, and then you can move it with R2 as normal, and it will still be in that rotation mode. So I can try and move it into a position, but it won't let me because it's actually still just recording a rotation. If I forget that and I record IK and the stripes go that way using R2, then I can rotate it using L2 as normal, but it will stay as being an IK keyframe recording. So say we animated this a bit. Say we had a follower on here that's trying to get the end of that leg to this position. So we'll have a tag and make it really strong. Then it's kind of flying about the place because this upper leg doesn't know what to do. So what we can do is add a keyframe along the whole thing, and then just add a bit of FK to that to give it an idea of the rotation you want. We could do not rotation, but because this is kind of reining in the allowed rotations, it's kind of coping a lot better with that animation. Oh, it's because it's collidable. There we go. And then you'd have it actually moving forwards and walking and stuff. But this kind of gets the idea that just adding a bit of FK can smooth out the kind of physical based animations of other parts.
I'd like to thank RevPlayer, SchemeDBT, MobiusDT, and all of my other supporters for making this tutorial possible. Check out TAPgiles.com to find out how you can support me in helping Dreams creators. Thanks for your consideration, and I'll see you in the next one.